Hey, I'm Ian de Borja. I am a producer and host for podcasts like Movies That Changed My Life and Cinenauts Exploring the Criterion, and I'll be appearing on the ShoPowSho. So make sure you go check out the episode. Yo, what's going on? This is the NRW where nerds rule the world. It's your boy, Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange, the Adobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Holla Holla homies and the Center gang of the ShoPowSho, back again. And of course, I can't do this without at least one of the amazing Ates. As you know, one of our Ates is over in Japan, educating the masses. We send all our love to Miss Kataphorric. So, fresh from the stuffy spa, as always, Miss Viva Valentina. How are you, Tina?
Literally, fresh out the spa. I was just working. I'm doing all right, Patrick. I haven't seen you in a while.
I know. We've kind of been off schedule a little bit because I have a lot of things in the fire, as it were. As you know, if y'all are following, make sure you follow us on ShoPowSho. On Twitter and IG, and of course TikTok. San Diego Comic-Con is about to be here, and if y'all know, I've been joining the Lumpia family. Getting down with the deep fried universe of Lumpia with a vengeance. I'm back into writing comic books. I'm co-writing the legendary Lumpia Squad, and we will be launching. We'll be premiering that first issue at San Diego Comic-Con with a screening of the film, doing a panel. A lot of fun stuff is planned and to be announced very shortly of what we're going to be doing. Super excited to see the peeps. So busy.
Awesome. Yes, that's an understatement. Well, today we are sharing another story.
Yes.
We have Ian de Borja.
Yes. Ian
I'll
de
have
Borja.
him correct.
Yep, de Borja. Right.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, look.
There he is.
Here he is.
From the Internet Movie Database, he's The Movies That Changed My Life is one of his podcasts. Producer, just killing a podcaster. I'm curious to learn what he knows and what he's done, because we are kind of cut from the same cloth, do much of the same things. And I think the overall love for film, I think, is really what bonds us together. So there you go. He's on the screen. Ian de Borja.
Welcome.
Air horns. Hello. That's a very hype introduction, by the way.
That's what we do, man. We got to give love.
That's the way to get people pumped to watch. Yeah, that's good.
Of course.
You know how it is. When you get ready to bring somebody in, you want to get them pumped. And you got to get that. It's all really, about those first moments. With that work we all do, bro. Like, I think, those flowers sometimes need to be deserved, and that work. And you want the audience to know, because there's stories to tell. So if they're not familiar, get familiar, because this person's got it. So that's why we spotlight you, man.
We want to toot some horns.
Hell yeah. So air horns, they went off.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
let me throw it off to Tina with our first question out the gate. Let's get this rolling.
And so we always want to know, where are you from? But like, where are you really from? And like, where are your parents from?
I currently live in Seattle, but I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was born in Daly City, as most Bay Area Filipinos were. But my mom grew up in, both my mom and my dad grew up in the Philippines. My dad from Manila, and then my mom grew up in Amaya, Cavite. So, which is like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours out of Manila. So a lot of time spent over there. Yeah.
Same. That's where my mom is from.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's dope. I love it.
What's your last name again?
Her last name is Liamato, but there's also Arias. There's like a lot of brothers and uncles that I'm still learning.
I'll text my grandma and see if the last name rings a bell.
Yeah. So to bridge off of Tina's question, what we like to do is also give love and light to those ancestors, those that paved the way for us to be here and do what we do, and also see if what we do kind of takes from them as well in certain ways. So if you could share maybe, a father, mother, auntie, uncle, ancestor, that story that you may know that also may be where you got what you do from.
Yeah, I have a very specific answer for that I didn't actually piece together until maybe a couple of years ago. But growing up, my grandparents owned like the first Filipino video rental store in Daly City.
Whoa!
And I would spend just like a lot of time there. So I would spend time just like watching Filipino movies or just like movies in general, just like in the back there. So. And then obviously eventually working like in the film industry and like as a video producer and all that sort of stuff, all that I feel like just stems from there. Just like a love of movies that I had growing up, watching with my grandparents or with my parents and my family and all that sort of stuff, I think is all rooted to that. Because even, I didn't understand Tagalog back then. I like vaguely understand it now. But they, I would always watch Filipino films and like comedies and stuff like that. And so, even not knowing saying, I would still laugh at like the very, very visual gag jokes or like the crazy action sequences, that obviously I'm sure you guys are well aware of. So, I think that's a pretty clear like starting point and like 100% sort of wraps into like everything I do today and all that sort of stuff.
That's
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So specific, like having the video rental, and then so like you've been watching films and studying film for that long.
Yeah. They also sold like Nike sneakers, and so I think that's also where like my love of sneakers came from. I remember like they would get a catalog of all the new all the new designs and all that sort of stuff and all the new lines coming out. I don't remember what it was. It was like a distributor book, but it was like horizontal and had the big Nike logo. It could have just been Nike Directs, and then we'd flip it through. And then every quarter, my grandpa would let me order like one sneaker from the set. So I think that's also where my love of sneaker and all that sort of stuff came from as well.
I love that. Yo, that's super cool. That's super cool. All right. So I dig it, man. You came ready. Okay. So let me catch it. You grew up born in Daly City?
Yeah, so I lived there for like 3 or 4 years, and then I moved down the peninsula with my grandparents, and me, my sister, my mom and dad moved with my grandparents down the peninsula, and so I spent most of my time down there. Went to school in UC Santa Cruz, lived in San Francisco for a couple of years, and then moved up to Seattle.
Okay, let's pause for a second. Let's go back around that time frame. Let's get pre-middle school years. What would your parents tell us about a young Ian de Borja?
Man, I also like, in addition to like movies, I've always just been very passionate about music. Also something that came like from my family. My grandma on my dad's side was a really good piano player, and she sang opera as well. And then my grandfather on my mom's side also likes to sing, and we had a piano. So I would always be like, I took piano lessons and saxophone lessons, all sort of stuff. General like pop culture love as well. I think a lot of things that I'm very passionate about today, I was very passionate about like back then. So I would actually think
beautiful.
Like a lot of the things that I'm still into now, my mom and my dad would not be surprised that I did, because I still like, I would love reading comic books, and I would love watching Star Wars or like the Ninja Turtles and all sort of stuff. And all these things I'm still like very, very interested in and love doing. Like you said, Patrick, you're going to Comic-Con. This is my first year not going in a long time. So I'm a little
I was like
out.
hoping later we could say you're going to be there.
I know. No. I mean, yeah. So unfortunately I won't be there this year, but that's like, the Holy Land, Comic-Con. So, I think all those sort of things is just, I found what I liked at a young age, and like obviously grew in other forms of stuff like that. But those are all big. And growing up in my house, Bay Area sports was huge. Niners, Giants, Warriors were very, very big. So a lot of like my love of sports just comes from, we had season tickets to the Niners at Candlestick. So we'd always go
so jealous
every Sunday. So I have like
squad too.
Yeah. So I have like fond memories and always think about going to games like my grandpa or my uncles or my cousins or my dad, all that sorts of stuff. So, that's pretty much what it was. My mom always says I would get in trouble in class for talking a lot. So I think a lot of the things I just kind of crafted it as to become an adult that I was as a kid.
All right, cool. So cool. A lot of that endured. That's dope. So while we're in that kind of that still that young time frame, hey, I'm Ian de Borja. I'm a Filipino. What is that, mom and dad? So did you have that sense of community that taught you that? What was that like in coming into that reality?
Yeah, I grew up extremely Filipino. I think other than not speaking Tagalog, my parents didn't want me to. They didn't, for various reasons. I think as a child of immigrant, I'm sure a lot of people have that sort of thing. So I grew up very Filipino. I had Filipino food 3 times a day. There were things where, so I never like got confused about that per se, especially growing up, like again, with my family store, but I definitely had, it was more the reverse where I was like kind of finding out like about like American culture in some ways. Like there are these home videos of me as a kid, where it would be at school or it'd be at someone's birthday party, and it would be like at a jungle gym type thing. And all the kids are wearing like shorts and, like t-shirts. And then you just see me like running across the gym mat, and I'd be wearing like loafers or top cider Sperry's and like jeans and like a tucked in shirt, because my parents thought like if it's a birthday party, you have to look like formal.
Dress you up for the birthday party.
Yeah, so I have like I have memories of that, and then I also know like, it was a big deal when like we would have pizza. Like we did not have pizza like a lot growing up. So like pizza, if I went to my friends, if we had pizza, that was a big deal. And then that's one. It's like a lot of like just various like little tidbits like that. But the school I went to, I think because where I grew up, there was like a fair amount of there's a pretty big like Asian community there. And so the school, actually, I remember doing projects about like the Philippines and stuff like that. So the school district was like really good about that. So that was never the issue. It was more just like the sort of the cultural things. I remember when I got like my first Slurpee, that was a big deal, because I like remember like all my other friends would go to 7-Eleven after school, but I never went. So things like that kind of pop up along the way. But the grander sort of like, where do I fit in? Never really kind of struck, which I'm grateful for, obviously, but it does also lead to like very funny sort of stories along the way.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll dive into that again, as we get into school years where we learn more about ourselves. Acceptance of ourselves, because sometimes, we reject that and then we come back to it. So let's get into school years then. So you had a little bit of passion. You had the family business where you could see the films. That's super dope. I love that. But talk to me as you got into your school years, and then how we get that influence of family into what our aspirations are for the future. Because, I don't know about you, so I'm not going to place it on you, but for the majority of people I've had on, while the arts are cool, that isn't, the career path. They'd rather us be engineers, doctors.
Yeah.
Tell me what you got into in school and how family kind of played into all of that.
Yeah, I was always like, so my sister is extremely is and was extremely smart, 4.0, went to UCLA, designer, very, very much the brains of the siblings. But I was always just very interested in being creative and the arts and all that sort of stuff. And so, I focused almost entirely on that. I remember my high school senior year was very much my schedule was jazz band, music theory, choir, leadership, a whole bunch of nonsense or nonsense, quote unquote. And there are things like that. And I wanted to be go to music school and all that sort of stuff, but obviously there was a little turmoil and that sort of thing. But the thing that I think in terms of sort of trying to break the bounds of a quote unquote typical sort of Asian upbringing was how I remember one time I got a C in some report card, and then my parents pulled me out of the musical for that year or something, something like that. So there are little things like that, but my parents were super supportive of all the arts things as I was doing, as long as I was gonna get to college, which I did, so that's very good. But yeah, I mean there was some but on the flip side, I remember I stopped playing music for a while when I was a kid, because I was in 4th or 5th grade. I was doing piano lessons, and I just didn't want to learn this one song or something like that. But I remember my mom or my grandma getting really frustrated, I didn't want to practice, and then I was I'm not doing this anymore. So, and then I stopped playing formally for a fairly long 5 or 6 years or something like that, which I definitely regret, because obviously they just wanted me to practice to become better. So obviously in retrospect, it's of course one of those things obviously they were right. But as a kid, that's that's not what you want to do. You kind of want to do
it's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah. So, that was it. But yeah, I mean, my parents were super, super supportive of basically everything. Again, as long as I was holding up my end of the bargain in whatever ways that I was going to. I imagine it became abundantly clear to my parents I was not going to be following the path of my sister in terms of going to top tier, being a top tier student and all that sort of stuff. And I think
she did that for you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So she did that for me, so I could do what I wanted to do. Yeah. So I think once my parents and I sort of came to, there was never a conversation about it, but I think once we both realized I was not going to be studying every night and all those sort of things, it made a much more healthy sort of, pairing of what, made me happy. And, when they saw that I was happy performing and all that sort of stuff, it worked out like that.
Okay. So what was that then? The earlier goal kind of was music, but then it changed, obviously.
Yeah. I mean,
to the side. So what became the new aspiration that changed your life?
Yeah. I mean, I still play a lot of music. I love going to shows and playing piano and guitar and all that sort of stuff. So when I went to college, I just signed up for a random major. I did a music minor there, but it became abundantly clear. And I think my parents probably had tried telling me this in high school, only I don't think I processed it. When I went to college and I tried doing music major stuff, it became abundantly clear I was not music major quality of musician, right? My friends who were music majors were practicing 8 hours a day, nonstop, and I was I want to go do this, I want to go do that, so I did not have that very specific desire to go do that. And I'm fairly confident my parents were trying to tell me this along the way, just not trying to be so harsh about it, because if you tell a kid, hey, you're not working hard enough, that's kind of that sucks to hear, right? But that's really what it was, which is totally fine. So I caught onto that pretty quickly, but I just knew I wanted to work. I always wanted to work creatively. So, whether that was, in college, I started doing a whole bunch of different, sort of creative hobbies. I got into doing graphic design. So I would I kind of did my own little t-shirt company where I would like make stickers and t-shirts and all that sort of stuff. And then I spent a lot of time like with my a cappella group in college, and like I would arrange music and stuff like that. So I was always like doing like various things there. And so I knew like while I was in college, I wanted to be like in a creative field. And so I kind of landed in like marketing right away. That's sort of where like I found my niche.
Okay.
Because
I like, gosh,
because
I we have similar stories.
Because I really like that's what it was. So like there wasn't a marketing major at Santa Cruz where I went. So like I came across this major called American Studies, which is basically like the study of American history through the lens of like popular culture, which is like that's everything cool. That I was like really interested in. I do like history a lot. And then I obviously love pop culture. So like getting to sort of see how like, the country has changed as told through like kind of big cultural moments. Like one of my favorite classes I took was about popular culture post 9/11 and how like movies changed and fashion changed and TV changed and music changed, like as a result of obviously the, biggest moment in at least our generation's like lifetime. And so that class definitely sticks out to me because I remember like that kind of shaped how I really think about, media and the arts. Like even to this day, like I always think about how movies are responding to things that are happening in real life, and music is responding to things in real life and all that sort of stuff. So, all kind of coming into that really shaped what I went to do like after college and sort of what I do now.
Wow. I feel that. I can definitely see how that was kind of like the genesis of what you would later have your podcast, The Movies That Changed My Life. So a whole lot of ways. That podcast, and then I have another podcast that I do with my friends called Cinenauts, where we do we go through movies in the Criterion. So we choose a movie in the Criterion collection, and then we talk about movies that we like inspired them. So that's like another one we do, and then that's a part of a whole podcast community called Tape Deck, where it's like a bunch of like mostly movie but various like pop culture podcasts that we do. We do one. Someone's a big one, 70mm. Those guys, they just talk about movies. We have one on Dune Pod. We have one called Bat and Spider. That's all about like low rent B movie horror films. So it's me and my friends. I found all these guys who also like love pop culture and movies, and we just started to talk about them more. And so that's kind of what we did, which is obviously a ton of fun. Awesome.
And then I don't know if I sent you this, but like I previously had a podcast called Rice for Breakfast. That was I would interview Asian Americans in pop culture. So I did one season of that, and then it got to be too much like with work and all that sort of stuff. So I had to like put the brakes on it, but that's definitely something like I want to get back to. That was like really fun to produce. And I got to talk to a lot of like awesome people. Get very similar to like this, your the ShoPowSho. So I'm glad. Yeah. So it's just cool. Like, it's just great hearing about people, because I think, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but in the last 20 years or something, there's been so many strides for, bringing up equal representation among diverse communities. But like, obviously Asian Americans are left aside in not only in pop culture, but like in history books in a lot of ways. Like, moving up to Seattle, I know a lot of people who had no idea about like the, Asian Exclusion Acts and like the, laws against Chinese Americans in, San Francisco and things like that. So, I love seeing that things like, the comic book you're talking about, or like seeing Joe Coy having a movie coming out in theaters, or Crazy Rich Asians, like all these little movements are like really like bringing up Asian stories to the limelight. So I just like, love getting to see all that. And like my goal for Rice for Breakfast was to feature people who are doing those types of things. So I would like to get back to that at some point, but we have my wife and I, we have a 1-year-old now. So it's getting a little hard to do like a bunch of these extracurriculars, but that's why I like listening to you guys, because there's, it definitely like is 100% the same vein of something that I was very passionate about. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, it's so cool that then now like we're able to have you on and tell your story.
Yeah.
And, like, where you came from and how you've influenced the pop culture world as well, because this is it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no worries, man. I'm really honored by that. And bro, you're part of our family now. You're part of the ShoPowSho fam. So, and I did see that you did do that. So I will be talking to you, down the road as things develop for other things. But let's go on this kind of line though of we got into how you got into these podcasts, but let's rewind it back a little bit, because in a lot of different ways, as you know, with our community, and in certain respects, depending on how we're brought up, a lot of us are very introverted and as nerds as well. So I feel you're a little bit more open, like myself. I'm very extrovert. I'm out there. This is me. Hey, love me or not. But I do remember, though, before I got comfortable with that, I was somewhat introverted. So what was that like for you? And let's go back to this college timeline.
I was always a ham when I was a kid. When I there are like lots of home videos of me, like, if like family would visit from the Philippines or something like that, I would just like put on a sing-along like cassette tape of like Aladdin and like perform it for people. So I used to love doing all that sort of stuff, but it's funny, like it's more that I've gotten older, I have felt the need to be like, okay, I just like want to like chill out at home a bit more and like sort of like be with my, my wife and my kid and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of like went in reverse a little bit. But I think that's also because, when you're doing, like you're hosting things professionally or you're getting paid to talk, you want the separation a little bit of that sort of thing. So like, I want to be like, it's nice being able to turn off and just like hang out with my wife and like watch movies and stuff like that. So I feel like it kind of came a little bit in reverse there. That's what I think it would be.
Yeah, I dial it up. I'm a wrestling fan as well. It's like putting up my Dwayne Johnson and The Rock. Like when I'm hosting, I got to turn into The Rock.
Right.
When I'm chilling, it's the regular kind of chilled out Dwayne Johnson. Yeah.
So. Did you watch the AEW? Do you watch AEW or are you only? WWE?
Yes. I'm hoping they get
Forbidden
Door.
Did you watch?
I saw bits and pieces. I didn't watch it all.
You got to watch the whole show. It was so good. Yeah,
definitely. Hey man, if you're into wrestling, I'm starting a wrestling podcast. I might talk to you about that.
Hey, definitely talk to you about that. I love pro wrestling. I loved that as a kid, and then I fell off. I think like most people, like they kind of had I think after like the Attitude Era thing, I definitely fell off a little bit. But when AEW came on, I have been like full on watching like, every week, not like Wednesdays and Fridays every week. I flew out to a pay-per-view to Florida with my friends. So I've rekindled my love for pro wrestling, which has been very fun. Yeah.
I'm with you. And it's funny that we brought that up because Tina, it's your husband that was like, Patrick, I'm about to move and that happens. I want to do something with you. So it's your husband that's pushing me to do this podcast.
Oh,
so,
sweet.
FYI.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. So, we can hop on you Tuesday nights and record.
Right? So, hey, Ian, we may got a squad now. All right.
Yeah, let me know.
I love it. All right. So boom, you're extroverted, you're out there. So it's easy to kind of make these transitions. And then I would assume a comfortability when you then started to actually turn it into something. So let's talk about, we're in college where we now, music isn't our thing. We got into this marketing. We kind of found a new way to stay in that creative path. But are those along the means of your career goals and then building that out? And then let's talk about how this IMDb came into the picture and kind of just making this go along your career path. So what is the career path?
Yeah. So out of college, I like interned at a startup in San Francisco. I kind of came in as like a general marketing person. So I would help like produce videos for them and do, work on social media campaigns, like very, very across the board, super startup-y role. So I was there it was called TaskRabbit. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. I was there for I was there for like a year and a half or 2 years. And then I went over to Lyft and I was one of their community managers. I was there for a little bit and then I sort of jumped into like the advertising world, where I would do like account management or producing for a while. And then that was all in the Bay Area. And then my then girlfriend, now wife, we moved up to Seattle. She went to Oregon. So a lot of our friends lived in the Pacific Northwest and in Seattle specifically. And we were like, we're not going to get a house in San Francisco. That's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved up to Seattle to be with friends and, able to afford like an actual apartment versus like a room with, 5 other roommates, which was obviously a huge upgrade. There I was doing more work with agencies and then I started working at Amazon, doing marketing for Prime Video. And then while I was at Amazon, I had to do a shoot with Mark Hamill, and I know, and we were shooting an interview with Mark Hamill, and I was in LA, and the person who was supposed to interview him couldn't come or couldn't make it, and so that day they were like, Ian, like, you love Star Wars, like, do you just want to do the interview? And I was like, yes, like, obviously.
God. They're like, you know who this guy is.
Yeah,
right?
and so I did it, and then like the team liked it, and like the studio that he was working with liked it, and so I just started like doing that for Prime Video. So whenever like we would have like new shows come out, I would start doing the junket interviews. You know, and so like my very first professional interview was with Mark Hamill, which I always think is like very cool and like very like a great memory to have. And he was like the nicest guy in the world. I don't know if you've had the chance to interact with him at all.
I've never met him in person, but he's like one of those celebrities.
He is like the nicest guy. You know, we had a 20-minute interview, and afterwards he and I just like, he also is a huge Beatles fan, and I am too, and we talked about that for a little bit. So then when he was done, we just like talked about the Beatles for like another like 10-15 minutes, you know, and he was just like basically anything you picture about him, like he is it, at least in my experience. So I got to do a whole bunch of that, and then I transferred into IMDb because IMDb is owned by Amazon. Most people don't know that, but they are. And so I transferred there, and then that's when I really started doing like the junket interviews and the, you know, I launched a Twitch channel there, and we'd host like for award shows and all that sort of stuff, which is a ton of fun. And then, you know, all along the way, I like everyone else got like really into podcasts and movie podcasts. I like love like hearing people talk about movies and pop culture. And when I was at IMDb, I was like, there's no, you know, the world's biggest movie company, like movie website, doesn't have like a podcast to talk about movies. Like, we should do it. So I pitched the idea of movies that changed my life, where we'd interview celebrities or directors, actors about like the 2 or 3 movies that like made them want to get into acting. Because like, again, like anyone can talk about a movie, like their favorite movie, but like what's interesting is why it affected them and why it like made them interested in acting or wanting to become a director and all sort of stuff. Like, I think that was like the interesting conversation, because you can have the same like everyone will have the same conversation about Star Wars or, you know,
Empire Strikes Back.
Right. Everyone will say, oh, like, all these specific moments, but it's like, when did you watch this movie? Like, that's what's important. Or like how, like what, you know, people say like the special effects or like the soundtrack. And like, you know, one of my favorite ones I got to talk to was the RZA from Wu-Tang. We got to talk about, obviously the, Enter the 36 Chambers, because that was like huge, you know, for obviously Wu-Tang Clan. So getting to talk about like little things like that, of just beyond the surface level of like why you like a movie, but like how it affected you was always interesting to me. And like, you know, so I'm glad we were able to get that off the ground there. So I was there for about 5 years, and then I recently left IMDb to go work at a creative agency to do more video producing, because I wanted to get into more like narrative storytelling. So the current agency I'm at is called Curator Pictures, which is within another agency called Color, and Curators stood out to me because they are the agency really focuses on hiring women and BIPOC creatives, which is like unheard of. Again, I'm preaching to the choir, unheard of basically in especially like the advertising world and the creative world. Like, it's all like, you know, white dudes like making these ads. And so, you know, that mission was very important to me. It's cool. Like, I was the first male hire, which I had like never, you know, when I'm in meetings, it's like, I'm usually the only male on the call with like, you know, 5 or 6 other women, which I had.
You were the diversity hire.
Yeah. Which is awesome. And, you know, I really resonated with that message, and we, and, you know, we get to tell cool stories. Like, just, we're trying to focus on brands who are doing things with, you know, trying to move forward BIPOC inclusion and things for women and stuff like that. So, I mean, I obviously love every second I had with IMDb and all that sort of stuff, but I just, you know, want to do, you know, I want to push myself creatively more and to do more like video narrative things, which I'm getting to do now, which is pretty awesome. So, my career path has been kind of like a dream, honestly, for the most part. There've been like a little random like hiccups on the way, but I really love like what I've been getting to do, you know, for the last 12 years or however long I've been out of college and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Let's go. I love this. Oh, all the light and man.
So is is that podcast still going? The movies that
it's not at the moment. They might pick it up again. But they like before I left, we started another podcast called IMDb is Obsessed, which is like a 20-30 minute show where they talk about like the newest movies that came out that week and stuff like that. I was on there for, I think we talked about Boba Fett. I was on a couple episodes doing that, but I was mostly a producer on that show. Like sort of, again, preaching the choir, but producing the show. And then I would do like some guest hosting as well there.
That's awesome. Oh yeah.
I love it, man. That's so dope. I feel that. I was thinking the last time I was in San Diego before this year, I'm coming back. And before the world started ending, it was the 50th. And they had the IMDb on the boat. Were you there? Yeah. Love that boat.
Were you on the boat?
Because I wanted to go over there, man. I know Kevin Smith was like doing all of that.
Yeah, Kevin. He always. I don't know if they're doing like I'm not sure if Kevin's on the boat this year, but he's like done a bunch of stuff with IMDb for like Sundance. Yeah. And the IMDb boat, which is great. And he's also just like the nicest guy. He's super friendly and just obviously like a gigantic dork and nerd. So you can just like talk to him about anything. Like. I remember I had a conversation with him the year the Aquaman trailer debuted, and he and I just like went off about it for like 10 minutes. Like, oh man, this is gonna be, this is cool. So yeah, he's also a really nice guy.
Sweet. So you were there. When right before the world ended.
Yes.
We're doing what we're doing now. All right. Well, I hope to see you next year. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, I do. I'm very sad I'm not going this year, but my goal is like a nerd dad goal is I want to go with my wife and daughter and get my daughter in cosplay and get to walk around all that sort of stuff. So hopefully in the next year or two, I can make that happen.
I love it.
You guys got to have like a family cosplay.
Yeah. So we'll figure out what she's into and then we'll incorporate around that.
All right. So I want to know from the man who's behind movies that changed my life previously when it was at IMDb. What are some of those movies that helped build in Borja into the person he is now?
Yeah.
It's the top 5, maybe.
People, I know.
I know it changes.
It's funny. Like I always, when I do the show, like I always know, like without a doubt, the guests before we start taping, they're always like, this was like a very hard prompt because it is hard, especially for like actors and stuff. Like how many movies could they put on that list?
Yeah.
So one I always talk about is Wayne's World is definitely one of them. I saw Wayne's World when I was like in 2nd grade or something, and my uncle showed it to me and my cousin who's my age, and I remember watching that like every day for a whole summer, and like I love that movie to death. It's sort of like I say like kind of taught me everything I love about like comedy. Like everything about that movie just like resonated with me so much and made me really passionate about like comedy and like sort of offbeat humor. Lord of the Rings is a big one for me, but I love the movies, but what really I don't know if you guys ever had the extended edition box set. Oh, yeah. So those had the killer appendices that had like 12 hours of making of. And I actually watched those more than the movies. And that's what really made me be like this is like the first time they really peeled back the curtain. Like this is how movies are made. And I would watch those all the time. And that's what really got me into wanting to like be in the movie industry and like video production and film production. Like that was very, very groundbreaking to me. So the bonus features of that, others along the way, like I would say like The Shining. Kubrick was the first director where I was like, I like capital F films, capital C cinema. Kubrick was like very, like that. He was the first guy that got me into that. And I am still very much, passionate about that. And then I think Hook, because of Rufio. Yeah, specifically. So Dante Basco, he was the first Filipino guy I ever saw on in a movie or like in an American movie, I should say, obviously. Yeah. So and that was the first time I was like, hey, like there's like a Filipino guy on the screen. And
representation matters.
Yeah. And it totally, all these haters and idiots online or act like representation, like, oh, like it doesn't matter. Like it does. Like getting to see that on screen was like highly very, very like, affected me deeply. And Bruce Lee movies were sort of the same thing where like, because Bruce Lee was a Asian guy who didn't like look like an Asian dork on movies, which is always the case, where he was just like this
villain,
or a villain. He was like an extremely badass who like just kicked everyone, and so I say like, I think a lot of kids growing up, they would say, if they're like playing like wrestling or like acting tough, they would say like, oh, like I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger or I'm Hulk Hogan, but I was always like, I'm Bruce Lee, so things like that. I didn't think about at the time were like very like informative to me and like meant a lot to me until like much later, which I'm sure I think comes across with a lot of people, like a lot of these little things that they stuck with me for a reason. Aladdin was my favorite Disney movie for a long time, but I never processed because he was the only like Asian, prince, Disney prince, or however you want to call it. Right. And, so yeah, it's funny. Like, I think kind of what you were asking about earlier, Patrick, about how you sort of like found myself and like culturally and like, in the world. I didn't realize I was discovering all that at the time. It was like much later that I kind of put all the puzzle pieces together that made sense to me. Cause, if you had asked me in, even in college, I would have said, oh yeah, like I love Hook, but I would have never, it took me not until a couple, 5 or 6 years ago, probably, where I was like, I loved Hook because like Dante Bosco was like the guy,
reflect on the reasons why.
Yeah.
Wow. And then even that changes like through every season that you go through life. Like,
right.
And then you'll remember the movies that did lay down those like core memories.
Yeah. And it's funny, like on those same lines, I've like, Olivia Rodrigo, our half Filipina queen of pop culture. I'm like, my number one goal is to make sure my daughter, who is also half Filipina, like sees Olivia Rodrigo and all her fame and is like, see, like, look at her. She's like on top. She's on top of the world. She's just like you, so.
I feel that. Yeah, it's funny y'all brought up Hook and everything, because I was just thinking about that same question. Because for most, I think I'm a different generation because I'm a little bit older than you guys.
I was going to say, I was like, I think me and you are the same age because you're just listing these. I'm like, yep.
Because all you got, everybody mentions Hook, but like I remember Ernie Reyes Jr.
From Turtles too.
From Turtles and The Last Dragon.
Yeah.
If you remember The Last Dragon. And it was like that young Filipino kid, and then he was a turtle.
It's funny. I love the Turtles. Then the first movie was like my favorite. I still to this day say it's the best comic book movie ever made, period. Ever.
I can feel that.
The first one. The movie holds up so well and is so good. But I think my love of the Turtles literally distracted me from like Ernie Reyes Jr. or things like that. Ernie Reyes Jr. is good call, and like Lou Diamond Phillips is also like another one. Things like that.
But that confused me though later. Like I thought he was Mexican because of he played
the La Bamba movie.
The La Bamba. Yeah. It shocked me later when I found out that he was Filipino. Like what? Really?
Yeah.
He doesn't claim it, or I don't know. I didn't feel like it like he did.
Yeah.
But amazing. Amazing. So again, I think your knowledge and experiences awesome, and I just love how you're kind of frameworking it too for your daughter and your next generation. And I'm curious where you're going to take your path down. But on a side note, because like I think I told you earlier before we started recording, I just got done with some press junkets. I'm curious from you, from a person who's been doing this as long as myself as well, how do you get, to me, it's like reps now. Like I've had so many reps in that I just know I can go into a junket blanket, but I know like a top 3-5 questions to just go into it without even having seen the film. I'll be all right. I'm curious some of your tricks of the trade to share with other podcasters as well that are out there.
Yeah. My thing that I always try to do when I interview people, whether it's junket or like long form, is I very quickly try and call out something that is very specific to the movie or the performance, because that informs the talent that I paid attention. And that usually unlocks like a much better conversation almost immediately. I know it's hard in junkets when you only have like 3 minutes, and especially now on Zoom when like you really are not seeing the person until you're on the screen. So it is a little different, but like before, you know, when we would have at least a little time in like the hotel junket room or whatever, like just being able to drop one tidbit, or I would go to like IMDb and like look at some older movies that they were in and call out a role I really liked of theirs that was not a huge title. I found that made conversations so much better. There's one specifically, I can't remember what movie it was now, but I was speaking with a director, and I noticed there was a balloon that popped up in a couple scenes or something like that, and I said like, hey, I noticed that there's like this little piece along the film that's like never really acknowledged, and she was like, oh my god, that's so cool, you noticed that. Like I just did that. She's like, I did that for something, you know, she did that like as like a little shout out to her family or something like that. And then that, you know, that just opens up the conversation immediately. And because, you know, these actors and stuff, they have to, like, for those who don't know, junkets are like, you know, we're in it for 5 minutes and then we're done. These people are in it for like 8 hours a day for like sometimes a week or two. Like, and so they're getting the same questions just over and over and over again. So it, you know, and you can feel it and you can see it sometimes, and they're sort of bored of the same thing. So for me, it's really important, just like that first question or your first interaction, try and squeeze in something that you think no one, like you feel no one else to ask, or something hasn't been talked about for a while. Another one of that was, who was I talking to? Morena Baccarin. She's in, you know, like Firefly and things like that. She was promoting a movie called Greenland that come out a couple years ago, and I'm a big fan of the show The OC, which Tina, I'm maybe aligns with you as well if we were talking about things like that. But and she's in like one episode of The OC, and so I brought that up right away, and she's like, and she literally was like, you were the first person to ever bring that up like in an interview. And so, you know, it just like gets the, you know,
that's cool.
It loosens up everything. Yeah. So that's my main tip for people who are looking to do that sort of thing. I would say that's a good one to do.
Awesome.
So now we have some bro tips, but now we have one final question for you.
Yes.
And it is our nerd check.
Yes. Okay,
so
let's go.
You can't say movies.
Okay.
And you can't say pro wrestling. Okay. And you can't say music. Okay. I think you're the person with the most conditions on the thing. We've gone through. We know you're super knowledgeable and super nerdy about those topics. Okay. So what is something maybe else, something niche, something that you could probably give a TED talk on, or maybe that you just got into and it's taking up a lot of space in your mind at the moment?
Trying to think what, like,
for example, like I'm super into name nerds on Reddit. Like I love looking at what people are going to name their kids, and like bad names.
That is extremely
really
niche.
Good names. It's really weird, but that's like all I do on Reddit. I don't know why.
Oh man, I know. If I called my wife in here, she would have so many things to say that I would. I love sports cards. I like collecting things. And cards, Patrick, obviously, I can tell you are a collector of things as well. Yeah, this is like a small batch of things. I also love like physical. This is movies, but it's slightly cheating. It's like physical media. I really like physical media. Like, you know, I love hunting down like special edition disc sets or box sets of things, or you know, in comics, like chase cover comics and all that sort of stuff, which is totally sucker money.
Covers and stuff.
Yeah, I acknowledge it's total sucker money, and like I don't need those things, but it's fun having, like, you know, if my wife makes fun of me, she knows if there's like a number on it, like a limited edition record where it's like limited to something, she knows like I'm gonna want it like so much more. And so obviously like the system works against me in so many ways. So I think that counts. Like I like collecting things that are limited. That's like a fun little game to play. That's like cool. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to like line up for record store day and like try and get like limited records that I would have, like of like, you know, bands or rappers or whatever that I would like, or finding, you know, again, like limited print run comic books or posters that I have like in tubes that I haven't hung up yet, or
but you have it. Like
yeah. So I really
big collector too.
Yeah, so I really love all that sort of stuff.
Because you're a sneakerhead. Are you also the same way about shoes?
Yeah, I used to be much more, but moving to Seattle like kind of took it out of me a little bit because it rains so much. So like I felt kind of dumb buying sneakers I can't wear for 8 months over the year. Like it legitimately, it's raining for 8 months, so I'm not going to wear like my nice shoes out. So it's kind of like knocked me down to like wearing Killshot 2s like most of the year, which are pretty standard run of the mill.
Nice pieces on the wall.
Yeah. I do. I still keep up like on releases and stuff like that. But I find that hunting, and it just got too hard to get them. Like it's too much of a pain in the ass.
So much to deal with the young generation now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, it's not fun when it's impossible though.
Yes, that takes it all out of you. Like you guys are talking so much about like, oh, San Diego, so hyped. And I'm like, Patrick, I'm so excited for you. Yeah. I never want to go back to San Diego ever.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. As much as I'm hyped,
it's crazy in there.
Yes.
Yeah, the old man is gonna definitely creep in. I'm gonna be like, do I really? I'm just gonna man the table because we're doing a lot. There's a lot coming, but I'm excited. But then also, yes, the old man in me is like, I don't want to do all that.
Are you doing other cons?
Yeah.
Say again.
Are you doing other cons? Are you coming up?
Yeah, there's gonna be more coming with a lot of stuff that are in the pipeline. Production wise. So
nice.
Stay tuned. And again, Ian, I think you and I cut very much from the same cloth. There's a lot that we can definitely get. Like there's a lot. I'm seeing the Star Wars comic up on the wall behind you. Yeah. And then just everything we talked about, like there's so much more I would love to chat with you about because I think we are really fond of the same thing. So we'll just have to have you back, man. That's all that is.
Yeah. Please, it's a ton of fun.
Wrestling
whenever,
podcast.
Let me know. Or wrestling,
coming
let me know.
Soon.
Yo, Ian, man, how can my people now catch up with you? I know you're kind of not doing a lot of the podcast because you're now trying to get more into the narrative flow. But if you want to follow you and get down with you, how can you?
If you want to listen to that old IMDb podcast, Movies That Changed My Life, really, really awesome. My current podcast is called Cinenauts. We release episodes mostly every Friday. It's summer, so it's kind of jumping around a little bit. But Cinenauts. Otherwise, you can find me on social, Ian DeBorja _. I couldn't get Ian DeBorja. Someone has it, and they never tweet. And I've DM'd them a bunch of times trying to get it from them. I know. Come on. So Ian DeBorja _ on Twitter and Instagram. That's it. But Cinenauts, and then listen to other Tape Deck pods, and you'll hear me pop up on those as well.
All right, y'all. I'll have everything in the description below. Make sure you give him some love, some follow, and just holler at him. And then I'll hopefully have him back. Because with everything he's doing, I could definitely have him on AAPI Toy Heroes. That's my other Asian rep podcast, talking about representation within toys. Man, just everything. So and wrestling that's on the way because Tina's husband's pushing me to get that open. Shout out to Keith, all the love. All right, y'all. Man, Ian DeBorja, there you go, man. All the love, man. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Boom, there you go. That was Ian DeBorja, IMDb producer. Now he's with some new company, but now he's kind of doing his own thing narratively, and I love it, with all women company. He's the diversity hire. That was super dope. That's beautiful. I love it. Just a good soul, artistic soul, something I can definitely relate with. How about you, Tina?
Oh my God. Yeah. There's just so many beats in his story that like resonated with me. And I feel like my own journey, which I found my way into my craft through marketing. It's a great alternative, kids, if you don't know what to do, choose your major. No, I thought it was really great. He's awesome. I'm pretty sure he's like my long lost cousin from the Bay Area. That's where all my family is.
Yeah, and possibly mine, because he's from Cavite too, and it's crazy. Very similar in nature.
And what do we always talk about, like Filipinos and our large families? So it was cool. Oh, yeah. But yeah, no, I think that the major thing that stood out to me was and I'm going to go through and like devour this podcast, the movies that changed my life, because he's so right in that, the movies that change people's lives are different per person. It's the different part of it that moved you, the different part of it that spoke to you. It could have been the music, it could have been the cinematography, it could have been the performance. And then just to kind of explore that with actors and directors about the movies and things that they've been a part of and then they've made and how that influenced them. I'm super into that. And then again, just exploring stories. Is that not what we do? Exploring the stories that are told through film, and then the stories of how those films then affect other people's lives. So super, super excited to check that out. And super excited to see Ian come back with more. Like I said, there's so many things that like he can come in and partner up with you, with the ShoPowSho, and moving forward, like great addition to the ShoPowSho family. Huge nerd. Ian, so great to meet you. I hope we see you back again soon. Oh yeah, I definitely think he's going to be a great addition to the family if we can make those schedules fit. But all the love, and check out his new podcast, The Cinenauts. Just love what all that's about and his approach with that. As a filmmaker, as a fan of the medium, I think that's dope. And like Tina, I'm with it. So Tina, how could the good people reach out to you so they can tell you what they're up to and all of that? Well, I share my own stories and stories of other people and their beloved stuffed animals on TikTok at viva.valentina. I'm also on Instagram, viva.valentina, where I kind of do the same thing, but also pepper in some of my adventures at Comic-Cons and in the tabletop industry. Lots of nerd lifestyle content, but viva.valentina, Instagram, TikTok, those are my main platforms. Check me out. There you go. All the love to the homie Viva Valentina, as well as to our other amazing Ate, who's killing it over in Japan. But our love to Miss Kataphorric, and also her keeping it creepy with Cherry and Cat, right?
Yes,
that's her own podcast. Yes, which is wonderful that you brought up, because it is horror movies through the eyes of BIPOC women. Yes. So if you want to see films broken down in that way, if you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of POC, that is the place for you. So keeping it creepy with Cherry and Cat. Of course. Where can they find you? Of course. But all the love. I always got to give love to my peoples. And Kat, we miss you. And so I just want you're still with us. We're still going to give you shout outs regardless. Yes. We need to. So for me, it's the Legend Kuya P on Twitter, TikTok, and IG. Of course, ShoPowSho, AAPI Toy Heroes. And here at the NRW and at New Release Wednesday, where nerds rule the world. That has been another wonderful episode. Shout out to Ian de Borja. Appreciate you, brother. Can't wait to have you back. You are part of our family, as are y'all. Thank you for coming, as always. Mahal kita, salamat. Until next time. Mahal kita din. Bye, y'all.
Hey, this is Ian de Borja, and what does my Filipino heritage mean to me? I think it means family and food. Two things that I will always associate and immediately bond with other Filipinos with are about our absurdly big families and the incredible food we get to eat.